This young girl was just 19. No job. No savings. Still living under her parents' roof when life hit her with something she never saw coming. A pregnancy test. 2 pink lines staring back at her like a death sentence. This wasn't in the plan. She was supposed to be figuring out life, not bringing another one into the world. She wasn't ready to be a mother. Hell, she wasn't even sure she was ready to be an adult. At first, she considered her options. Abortion crossed her mind. Adoption seemed like a way out. She could have this baby and hand it off to a couple who actually wanted one. But before she could make a choice, her mother made it for her. No discussion, her mom had said, shutting the conversation down before it even began. And that was that. It didn't matter that she was terrified. It didn't matter that she wasn't emotionally or financially prepared. It didn't even matter that she didn't want to be a mother. Her decision had been taken from her. So, against her will, she kept the baby. People like to say that motherhood changes a woman. That the moment she holds her baby for the first time, something inside her clicks into place. She transforms into a nurturing, selfless caretaker. That didn't happen for her. She loved her child, sure, but she also resented everything that came with her. The sleepless nights, the screaming fits, the endless responsibilities. There was no pause button, no way to step back and breathe. Meanwhile, her friends were out living the life she believed she was supposed to have. They were going to concerts, partying, and hopping in cars at midnight for last-minute road trips to the beach. They posted pictures from vacations, laughing under neon lights, sipping drinks with tiny umbrellas. Their lives were wild, free, and full of possibilities. And she was stuck. Stuck changing diapers. Stuck rocking a wailing baby to sleep at 3 a.m. while exhaustion gnawed at her bones. Stuck watching her youth slip away, day by day, feeding a child who needed her, while she had no idea who she even was anymore. She didn't want this life. The lies began she wasn't going to be trapped forever. That's what she told herself. Anyway, one day, she told her parents she had found a job. They believed her. Why wouldn't they? She left the house every morning like clockwork, dressed for work, pretending she had responsibilities. But she wasn't going to work. She was going out, drinking, dancing, throwing herself into a life that felt like the one she was supposed to have. For a few hours each day, she wasn't a mother. She wasn't some 19-year-old girl burdened with a screaming baby and a future she never wanted. She was free. But living a double life wasn't easy. She needed money to keep up the act, and since she didn't actually have a job, she had to find another way. It started small. A few bills slipped from her mother's purse. A check swiped from the counter, cashed before anyone noticed. When she needed someone to watch the baby, she spun stories, manipulating friends into babysitting, promising she'd be right back and then disappearing for hours. She became an expert at deception. She had to be. Because the truth was that she wanted out. Eventually, she got what she wanted. Years passed. Her daughter was now a toddler. One day, she told her parents she had to leave for a work trip and that she'd arranged for a nanny to watch the baby. This wasn't unusual. By now, she had perfected her lies. But this time, she didn't come back. Days turned into weeks. No calls. No messages. Just silence. Her parents grew worried. Then, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from an impound lot. The car she had been driving had been towed. Her father went to retrieve it. But the moment he opened the door, a foul, gut-wrenching smell slammed into him, so strong it made his stomach turn. Something was wrong. The trunk reeked of decomposition, like a body had been left in there to rot. And then, as if nothing had happened, she finally came home. But the baby wasn't with her. Panic set in. Her mother demanded answers. Where was the baby? Who had been watching her? Why had she been gone for so long? The excuses were vague and inconsistent. Something felt off. Her mother didn't hesitate. She picked up the phone and dialed 911. "My daughter's been gone for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter," she told the dispatcher, her voice shaking. She admitted she's been looking for her herself. "Something's wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car." The police arrived quickly and brought her in for questioning. That's when she spun her web of lies. She claimed she had left the baby with the babysitter. But now, the babysitter had vanished. The officers pressed for details. Who was this woman? Where did she live? Did she have a phone number? After a moment of hesitation, she gave them a name, one that would soon become infamous. Detectives were skeptical. If the babysitter had taken the child, why hadn't she reported it? Her answer? "I was doing my own investigation." They asked for the nanny's address. She took them to an apartment complex, pointed at a specific unit, and confidently stated, "That's where she lives." However, when officers knocked, no one answered. And after some digging, they uncovered the truth. The apartment had been empty for months. No one by that name had ever lived there. Because the nanny never existed, she was arrested. And that was just the beginning. The case exploded across the country. News stations covered it non-stop. Volunteers combed through forests, dumpsters, and lakes, desperately hoping to find the missing child. Days turned into weeks. Then, weeks into months. And then, something chilling surfaced. Detectives searched the home's computer and found disturbing internet searches. Things like how to make chloroform neck-breaking. Even more damning? Just 2 days after her daughter supposedly disappeared, she borrowed a shovel from a neighbor. But what really sent the public into a rage was her behavior after her child went missing. While search teams were out looking, she was out stealing checks, shopping, and, unbelievably, partying. The pictures were hard to believe. There she was, standing on stage in a crowded nightclub, flashing a wide, carefree smile. Her toned body was on full display, wearing a tight dress that left little to the imagination. Bright, neon lights reflected off her skin as she posed confidently, one hand on her hip, the other flipping her hair over her shoulder. The crowd cheered. It was a hot body contest, and she was living it up like she didn't have a care in the world. Except she did. Because at that very moment, while she was basking in attention, taking shots, and laughing like life was one big party, her baby, her missing baby, was nowhere to be found. And this wasn't some desperate attempt to cope or distract herself from the pain. No, there was no grief in her eyes, no sign of a mother frantically searching for her child. She looked free. She was free. She got a new tattoo. Her baby was gone, and yet, she was out in the world, drinking, dancing, and permanently marking her skin with a phrase that made it seem like she had finally gotten what she wanted. For a full month, her parents didn't call the police. A month. 31 days passed with no report, no investigation, nothing. She kept up the act for as long as she could, feeding her mother excuse after excuse about where the baby was. "Oh, she's with the nanny," she'd say. "We're staying with friends for a bit." But the lies started falling apart. Less than a mile from her parents' house, a utility worker was walking through the woods, going about his day, when something caught his eye. A plastic bag. Dirty. Torn in places. Stuffed beneath the brush. At first, he thought nothing of it, until he got closer. Until he saw what was inside. The remains of a small child. The bones were scattered, with the duct tape still wrapped around the tiny skull, still covering the mouth. Whoever had done this had made sure the baby would never take another breath again. By the time her trial started in 2011, the case had become a full-blown media sensation. It wasn't just a crime story anymore, it was the crime story. Every news station ran updates around the clock. Reporters fought for courtroom access. The public was obsessed. Millions followed every detail, dissecting every word, debating every piece of evidence. Then came her defense. She stood before the jury and claimed innocence. Not guilty. Not a murderer. Not responsible for any of it. Her explanation? The baby had drowned. According to her, it was an accident, a tragic mishap in the backyard pool. She said her father had found the baby's lifeless body and, terrified of being blamed, had decided to cover it up. That's why she never reported her daughter missing. That's why she lied. That's why she spent the following weeks partying like nothing had happened. The prosecution, on the other hand, painted a very different picture. This wasn't an accident. This was a premeditated murder. They pointed to the chloroform found in her car, the internet searches for things like neck breaking and how to make chloroform, the smell of human decomposition that forensic teams confirmed in her trunk. They argued that she killed her own child because she wanted to be free. She didn't want the responsibility. She didn't want to be a mom. She wanted to go out, party, drink, dance, live the life she believed she was meant to have. And her baby? Her baby was in the way. The jury deliberated. The world waited. Over 40 million people tuned in to hear the verdict. And then, after much investigation, she was found not guilty. The public erupted. Protests broke out. People were furious. But the justice system had spoken. She walked free. Now, it's 2025. 14 years have passed. And for some reason, she decides to join TikTok.
Today is Saturday, March 1st, 2025. This is my first of probably many recordings on a series that I'm starting. I am a legal advocate. I am a researcher. I've been in the legal field since 2011. And in this capacity, I feel that it's necessary, if I'm going to continue to operate appropriately as a legal advocate, that I start to advocate for myself and also advocate for my daughter. For those of you who don't know, my name is Caylee Anthony. My daughter is Caylee Anthony. My parents are George and Cindy Anthony. This is not about them. This is not in response to anything that they have said or done. That's not to say that I'm not going to respond at some point to some of the things that they have said and done.
The reaction? Instant, unfiltered outrage. People flooded her videos with hate. Some called her a murderer. Others accused her of trying to profit off infamy. Within hours, she disabled the comments. Maybe she thought people had moved on. Maybe she thought time had erased the past. But the internet never forgets. She says she'll keep posting. But after the backlash, let's see how long that would last.